Just like our homes, every place of worship needs furniture to fill the space and aid in our worship. Jefferson Tortorelli has been working for over 30 years in the design of liturgical furniture for worship spaces all over California. From altars to podiums, crosses to tabernacles, Jefferson crafts pieces that are crucial to the worship practices of so many souls. We'll learn what that process is like and get a glimpse into what it means to not only share in his family's trade, but also in the trade of the divine carpenter himself. Jeff, thank you for putting a pause into your shop today to talk to us and show us your work. I would like you to tell us, in your own words, who is Jeff?
Who is Jeff? I don't know. Love my wife, love my kids, love my dog. Pretty independent, that's why I work for myself. My wife tells me I probably could not work for somebody. Love to build, absolutely love to build. In the shop, on top of things. I am a problem solver.
Well, your father was a machinist.
Right.
Your grandfather was a master carpenter.
Right. My mom and dad graduated high school, and it was, always, working class. It was important to them for me to wear a suit and tie. So I, have a degree in finance and marketing, got my broker's license, started my own deal, had that for like 10 or so years. Didn't really like the loan business. It's a pretty cold business, and it really wasn't my thing. Made good money, but I didn't really like it that much. And I got my contractor's license, and I started doing some historic renovations, did some in Pasadena. I really like being in my shop. So this is really kind of what happened. And I was pretty involved in Holy Name of Mary. It's a Catholic church out in San Dimas. And, with kids in school, I was involved in the school and in the church. I was a Eucharistic minister. And I was really good friends with the pastor, a guy by the name of Bill Moore. He was an artist in his own right. And I had always kind of maintained a small shop on my property. And so Bill asked me, the priest, if I could build a couple pieces for our church. And he wanted me to build like a presider's table and a gift table and that kind of thing. And as I'm building this stuff, it dawned on me, when you go into church, I don't think you really put much thought into who builds the altar, who builds the pulpit, who builds the cross. All the liturgical furnishings that are up front.
Yeah.
Who builds them? Somebody does, right? Well, I started thinking about it, and I thought, well, this is kind of cool. I can do that. And kind of started really slow, doing some pieces from my church. And then, people would come and, maybe from another community, and they'd see some of the pieces and kind of hunt me down. So I picked up a couple odd jobs here and there for different churches. But when this woman from the Archdiocese asked me if I had a presider's chair that the bishop could use, or the cardinal rather, that was Mahoney at the time, I thought, wow, it'd be kind of cool to, have the cardinal use one of my chairs. Yeah. Well, not one of I didn't have any chairs, right? I'd never built a chair for a presider's chair before. So I said, yeah, I'll just build one. She said, really? I said, yeah.
That was problem solver.
Yeah,
exactly, that's what we were talking.
So I built this chair. It took me about 2 weeks, and I gave it to the Archdiocese. Mahoney used it during his mass at the convention. And after the mass, he came up to my booth with a guy named Dick Vosco. He's like a nationally known liturgical consultant. And Mahoney says, we're building a cathedral. And he says, if it were bigger, we could use it in the cathedral. And I'm thinking to myself, I could build a way bigger chair if that's what you want. So Vosco gives me his card. I was pretty taken aback, and actually I was pretty concerned because I didn't have a portfolio. Yeah. It was like written in their stuff that they're looking for nationally recognized artists. So they sent me, after this initial presentation, they sent me a letter saying, okay, we're gonna have you design the following pieces: the cathedra, the ambo, which is the pulpit. I don't know if you're aware of this, but the cathedra is actually what the cathedral is built around. So it's a pretty important piece. And then I get word from Vasco that, yeah, okay, it's looking all right, but there's, you know, a couple issues here and there. And finally, the chair, the basic design, if you look at it, the arms are spread out, and that really represents kind of a welcoming parent. Now, this is the main chair in the cathedral. The back of the cathedra is an interlink cross design. And that is meant to sort of show all the different communities that make up, especially the LA Cathedral. If you look at the community in the LA Cathedral, it's all over the place,
Very
you know,
diverse.
just all, yeah, very diverse. And the woods in the back of the chair are from every continent except Antarctica because
Wow.
they have no trees in it. It's
Yeah.
pretty incredible, yeah.
Tell me about other commissions that you've done. Do you have any that are your favorite or that have been extra challenging?
You know, one of my favorite pieces, though, two pieces, are the altar candles at St. Maximilian Kolbe. The candles are like kind of a three-sided deal. They're round at the bottom. And the bottom used copper, and I made these crown of thorns for the base, right? And then he was a priest during World War II, and he was put into a concentration camp. I think it was Auschwitz. And you've got to understand, though, Kolbe was really into the Blessed Virgin. So from the tips of the crown of thorns at the base, I had this barbed wire that kind of just twisted up around the candle. And on the barbed wire, I had the beads of the rosary, you know, on it. And
Well, that's that spirituality that you were
Yeah.
talking about. Do you feel that after working with so many projects, liturgical projects,
Yeah.
that has it had an effect on you spiritually?
if you were to ask friends of mine, I am probably the last guy you would ever think that we would be doing what I'm doing. You know, I'm a little irreverent. I am spiritual.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it's something I was meant to do. I turn down stuff unless it's really, really special. I love building things. That's what it is. I actually believe, and I'm not being immodest, but I have been given a talent to build. Where I grew up, we had a little house it was in Glendale. There was a little house up front, and then there was a garage apartment in the back. And my grandmother, grandfather were in the back. And I spent a lot of time with the grandparents and learned the basics of carpentry. But at 5 or 6, I think I built my very first bookcase. And then throughout my life, I was always building stuff. Built robots. I loved electronics and electrical stuff and mechanical stuff.
I'm guessing that came from your dad.
I think it came from my
Little
dad,
bit.
yeah, for the most part. Yeah, it did.
Saint Joseph and Jesus were carpenters.
Yes, they were. I've had some really weird experiences, actually, because we will build a cross and have a hand-carved corpus, and we will have to mount that corpus, Jesus' body, on that cross.
Wow.
And we nail them. I mean,
Oh, okay.
some people bolt this stuff. I've always done it realistic, where I'll actually forge like spikes and then nail that corpus to the cross. And it's kind of weird to do that, actually. It's rather moving. It can be.
What is something that you would motivate them with for people who are in the same craft or the same type of artistry?
You're not going to
Yeah.
become wealthy, but it's pretty rewarding. First of all, you got these people that are asking you to build something for their worship community, for their sacred space. You're not just building a chair. You're not just building a dining room table. You're building an altar, you know, a table of sacrifice, a table of celebration. You're building a chair that the presider sits in, or a cardinal or bishop sits in. What does that chair mean? You know, I mean, all pieces kind of go to the celebration of Jesus.
Jeff, there's this project that you're working on for St. Michael's. Can you show us where it all starts?
Starts right there.
Oh, perfect.
Okay, from here, we take it over to the joiner. And the joiner is a machine that basically gives us a nice flat surface to work with. And then from that, you can get all the other surfaces. So then from the joiner, we would go to the planer, which then takes the material to whatever thickness we want to work. And then once we have a dimensioned piece of wood, where by that I mean we've got a flat bottom, we've got a flat top, and we have two sides that are square to the top and bottom, then we can actually start making things, and those are dimensioned then by one of the 3 table saws that are in the shop. Got a little baby saw here, we have a sliding table saw over there for larger pieces, and then we have the RT40 for the really big, heavy-duty, thick stuff. And this saw handles the thinner stuff. And that saw can do either. So the flat pieces that we were just talking about, that would make up the horizontal rails here, and then the columns. We have 3 square columns that are 9 1/4 by 9 1/4. That's what that would make up. Now the balusters are made up also starting with the flat wood, but they're glued up because you can tell they're close to 4 inches thick, and what we do is we will glue up material to make a block of wood.
Oh, okay.
And I think we had to make about 29 balusters. Wow. So we had to have 29 blocks, right? And then what I'll do is I'll take that block and it will go on the rotary, and basically that block would go in here, all right? And then that cutter comes over, comes down, and it rotates, and it cuts it a rough round shape.
Neat.
Here.
Okay. Oh, it's heavy.
It's heavy, yeah. Yeah.
How does this go to that shape?
Okay, then here, then what we do is this would go on the lathe, because I had to make the same piece 29 times. I use this because I've made a template that matches the profile of the baluster, okay? Simply, this spins, and then this follows the template. You can see. And then they're sanded, and then they end up in there.
Wow. What would you say is the most difficult part of everything that you're working on for them?
Nothing's difficult.
That's the words of an artist. Yeah.
It's really, I mean, it's just different, that's all.
Yeah.
No, actually, there is a part of this that's going to be difficult. You want to see what it is?
Yes.
Okay, it's down in the office. You want to go down there? Watch your step.
Thank you. So this is your office.
This is it. It's all its glory. Believe it or not, the most challenging part on this project, well, there's actually 2 things, and they're kind of related, is this little dome. See that little dome?
Yeah.
That little dome is going to be challenging. You can't cut it on a table saw. You can't cut it on a lathe, because each one of these segments is flat. I made some domes before. I used to have a really large lathe, but I sold it before I moved here because I just didn't use it that frequently. But now, for that dome, it'd be kind of handy to have. Probably what I'll do is I'll do it in segments.
And how long would a project like this take?
Maybe 3 weeks, something like that, 3, 4 weeks. So tomorrow we'll start cutting this stuff up. By the middle of this coming week, they'll be put together. And then by the end of the week, probably the following week, they'll be ready for staining. Actually, the most difficult piece I think I ever built in my life, I promised my wife I'd make her some floor lamps, right? Yeah. And I made her these gorgeous lamps, but they were the hardest piece I've ever done in my life. Like the shades shades are like wooden shades with mica, and it's like real fine joinery, really nice.
How long did that take you?
Long time.
Yeah.
Long time. Somebody asked, hey, would you build one for me? And I said, no.
That was just for my wife.
That was for my wife, that's
project.
it, yeah.
Jeff, thank you so much for showing us your shop and really sharing with us how you pour your heart into your carpentry and all of your designs.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure having you all here.
The amount of detail that you add to all of your work is such an inspiration for us to do the same with the artwork that we put out into the world. And let's all remember that even if we're not making big altars for these churches, we can still pour beauty into the world around us.